A woman in Ohio is being criminally charged for how she handled the remains from a miscarriage she suffered at her home. A detailed report from the Washington Post says Brittany Watts is being investigated by a grand jury for a felony abuse of a corpse for allegedly wrongfully disposing of the fetus. Watts was in and out of the hospital days prior to her miscarriage at nearly 22 weeks. And according to the Post, the doctors confirmed her pregnancy was not viable. When Watts woke up on September 22nd, she felt intense pain in her abdomen and miscarried in her bathroom. Once she was taken to the hospital, she told the nurse she had left the fetus outside her home. The nurse contacted the police and they showed up 2 weeks later to arrest her. Watts' lawyer said in this statement to CNN, there is no law in Ohio that requires a mother suffering a miscarriage to bury or cremate those remains. The prosecution of Miss Watts is tragic, it is unjust, and we will continue to fight. Joining me now, defense and trial attorney Misty Marris. Thank you so much for being here. How does this get charged in the first case when you have the doctor saying that the fetus was not viable, and you also have a medical examiner said there was no abuse or anything to the fetus at all afterwards either?
Right. So this is a case that I think is near and dear to many people's hearts. A lot of people have experienced this horrible situation of a miscarriage. So in this particular case, the statute that she is being charged under is abuse of a corpse. And we had a lot of insight as to what the prosecution was looking at when bringing these charges because there was a preliminary hearing. And at the preliminary hearing, prosecutors essentially said it was irrelevant whether or not the fetus was, whether or not there was a live birth, whether or not the fetus died in utero, which was confirmed by those very medical reports that you spoke of. They were focused on everything that happened after and what happened with that fetus after the fact. Now, the defense, on the other hand, focused on everything that happened, the totality of the circumstances, that this woman had gone for medical treatment. She ultimately did not get the medical treatment. She, for 3 days, waited 8 hours, ended up going home, had a miscarriage like many others have experienced, and is now being charged with abuse of a corpse, which seems to be something that this would not be the legislative intent of that statute. And that's what we're going to see as this case moves forward. Those are the primary legal arguments from a defense perspective.
She is going through one of the worst times in a woman's life, having to mourn a baby, having to go through this pain. I want to ask you if this statute has been used before in a case like this or another case.
There's actually been a case in Ohio back in 2019 that resulted in probation. Keep in mind, this is a felony charge that can result in up to 1 year in prison. So it has been used previously in this way. However, we're in a whole new world here because now we're post the Supreme Court decision Dobbs. And so there's a lot of uncertainty about the way these statutes are going to be used, and there's less constitutional barriers that were in place under Roe. So this is certainly a case to watch. And again, they're going to be looking at this state statute, and some of the primary issues will be the legislative intent. This statute, the intention is for grave robbing, all the way to mistreatment of a corpse. So does this situation fall into it? A lot of people are going to say no. And then the other piece of it is that definition of corpse. Under this circumstance, is this going to fall under this from a legal perspective? And again, that is a hot button issue that loops us back into the whole discussion of Dobbs and rights moving forward with respect to abortion.
Politics is at play, and this woman's life is ruined at this point in time. We'll see what happens. Misty Marris, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Coming up still for us, a class.